Hey there, I'm Scott Winfield, and welcome to Victorian Opera's web series, Artists in Isolation. On this episode, we're delighted to be joined by beloved Australian soprano, Emma Matthews. Emma, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling. Now, Emma, you're the first person to join us outside of their home, which is quite exciting. So, where do we find you today?
Well, I'm in my lovely studio at Whopper, and I've got a grand piano and all my Helpmans.
I was about to say, I can see a number of Helpman Awards perched above your bookcase in the distance.
That's right, and my green rooms and my opera scores that I pinch from Opera Australia.
We won't tell them. Everyone watching, the secret's safe between us all. Emma, I wanted to ask you, well, clearly many questions because this is an interview, in case you didn't know. As you said, you're at the West Australian Academy of Performing Arts in your glorious studio, surrounded by lovely posters and awards and a beautiful grand piano behind you. How is this, being at Whopper during this time, how has that helped support you through COVID-19? Has that helped bring a certain structure to your life?
Look, it's been incredibly hard work, Scott. It's been, we didn't know what was happening day to day. And initially at the beginning, as things started closing down, everything went online. I was home from my studio at home for about 5 weeks, doing all the workshops and the lessons online. It was a lot of planning and so much energy going into it, talking to a screen, and trying to keep the students inspired and motivated and enthusiastic for what they're dreaming to be doing, and saying everything's going to be okay, which it is. Everything's going to be okay. But when we started coming back and having the face-to-face lessons, as you can see, I've got quite a big room. So we were able to, I was able to see my girls and have them pretty much standing where my chair is now, and I'd be at the piano. And I've put a line of electric tape on the floor. They're not allowed to go past it. Yes. And hand sanitizer. And I'd clean everything in between students, and we were really careful, and they were all so grateful to come back. And we just did all the mid-year assessments and exams and things online. Face to face in the wonderful Richard Gill Auditorium, and just to see them all again, all 61 of them, and hear their beautiful voices live. It was just so amazing, so inspiring.
I imagine returning to lessons and returning to sort of that assessment setting, just having that sort of moment of live performance, even in that setting, must have been incredibly special after sort of an absence of that.
Absolutely. But we had some really fun moments on Zoom, lessons where a cat would sort of leap across the back of the room, or fathers would run past their boxer shorts. And you go, oh, what was that? So I felt like I really got to know everybody a lot better. And they were in my house too, of course, and my dog kept coming up and sniffing, around me and everything. And my son would bring me cups of tea and spill them. And it was terrific.
Your students are incredibly lucky to be nurtured and guided by you, Emma. I was wondering, out of curiosity, what's your Diva 101?
Oh, Diva 101.
What are your top tips?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think the main thing is to be as prepared as you can be for any performance. Certainly in my career, I had moments where I wasn't as prepared as I should have been, and I did leave things to the last minute. So I've learnt from that to be prepared as you can be with your languages, with your musical preparation, with the history of the piece, and your own technical preparation, to have all that ready so that when you do perform, it's the absolute best you can be. And when you're panicking, and we often do panic in the wings and get a performance anxiety and so forth, to turn that around into a positive sort of, I deserve this and I want this and I'm here for a reason, and to empower yourself when those nerves come into play.
It must be so extraordinarily special to share all the fabulous music that you know and that you've been fortunate enough to be introduced to throughout your career and throughout your life, to share that with a new generation of artists.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I work mainly with sopranos. I've got a couple of mezzos in my studio. I do the workshops with everybody, but the ones that I teach myself are generally my voice type.
Yes.
And to be honest, I was looking at repertoire to do a concert and I thought, I can't do any of these now because all my students are doing them. And, and I think, oh, it's a lot of pressure because if I perform them, I've got to be absolutely bloody perfect, especially in front of them. But, they keep me on my toes. And I think I finally learned how to breathe as a singer because I've had to learn how to teach it.
Yes.
And I just sort of did it. I was never aware, but now I understand the use of support and breath. And I feel I'm singing better than ever because I'm teaching and they're teaching me in the process.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, it's
Wonderful.
amazing.
What role does music and singing have in your household now?
Oh, well, I've got two boys. My eldest is 18, Jack, and he's actually just got himself a producer because he's been writing songs and he put something up during isolation and a Sydney producer found him and is working with him, which is amazing. And my youngest son is doing musical theatre at John Curtin College of the Performing Arts, and he's not classical. Heaven help us if either of them would be classical. But and my husband, of course, still sings, and we don't. I don't know. I tend to go home and not want music at home.
Yes.
I tend to go home and watch rubbish TV and eat, which is terrible, and drink.
No, but an important neutral space where you can actually switch
Absolutely.
off as Emma Matthews, sort of the artist.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to have, we've got a 2-story house and the boys are both upstairs and one's in his room with the microphone on going, oh, wow, his electric guitar, and the other one's singing along. He's doing Chicago at the moment at school, and so he's tapping above our heads and singing. So it's pretty constant.
Yes.
It's never quiet, that's for sure.
Emma, reflecting on the past couple of months, responding to COVID-19, how have you been keeping balance?
I think going through COVID-19 for me did enable me to stop a little bit, especially when I was working from home and teaching from home. I'd allow myself little breaks because the Zoom lessons were so intense, to just make a cup of tea and go out in the garden.
Yes.
And I must say we planted so many trees, Scott. There's no room in our front garden for anything else. We've just filled it, absolutely filled it. But that was lovely. And we have, I mean, I don't know if you've been to Perth lately, but the Perth sky is so amazing. The cloud structure and everything. It's just so blue and bright. And
I was about to say the brilliance of the blue.
yeah. So I've got this chair in my back garden and I'd just go and sit there with a cup of tea and look up and go, wow. And I think I was able to slow down a bit and as I said before, connect with my sons, connect with my beautiful husband more and actually make dinner for the family because, being at Whopper, I generally am home at 7:30 in the evenings. So I was able to do things like that. I think I've really found reconnected with friends and just tried to reach out to people that especially my colleagues who have lost so much work. I'm so fortunate, Scott. I'm just so fortunate to have landed this dream job and to have the opportunity to still be teaching and creating.
What has this time given you renewed gratitude for?
My family, I think, and my sort of acknowledging is giving me gratitude for my fellow artists, and just the respect that I have for them and how they're managing is just unbelievable.
What does live performance bring to you, Emma Matthews?
there's nothing quite like it, Scott, really. It's exhilarating. It's everything coming together. You know, you work so hard on creating a role or a performance, and you know the being part of the family on stage. You know, when you're in a show and you have these new colleagues that you work with, and suddenly, oh, he's your husband, or you know that person's going to murder you, and you know you develop these incredible theatrical relationships. And I've been fortunate to work with some really incredible people in my career, and to just to have that trust built on stage, this whole world on stage that you then perform and share with an audience. You invite them into this space and go, come into our world and hear this story and escape with us.
You have extraordinary stage presence. Would it be fair to say that you're sort of a stage animal or a creature of the stage? How do you view yourself, and how do you bring that to a performance? Because as soon as you walk on stage, all eyes on you.
Oh, look, I think I've always felt my most comfortable. It sounds a bit weird, but being somebody else, you know, playing a character. I've ever since I was a little girl, I used to play pretend in the backyard, and when we were living in Fiji, we had this beautiful hill at the back of our property, and I'd be a fairy queen, and you know, I'd talk to the rocks and had faces, and then my teddy bears and things were around, and I was always
surrounded by an audience.
Oh, of course. But I felt, you know, it's interesting being now a teacher and having to come up with Emma's language and inspire as Emma, because I was always, I think, entertaining and inspiring as a character or as a vessel of a composer and a director. I was always expressing somebody else's story. So now not performing as much as I'd like to be, but performing as Emma, yes, has been a real challenge for me. I've had to find a lot of courage that, to be honest, at times I felt like this is just too hard. And so, you know, performing for me was what I felt most comfortable with in the whole world. And singing up there on those top notes and soaring above the orchestra and pushing myself to yeah, I remember working with Stuart Maunder and Richard Bonning in Romeo and Juliet and the Poison aria, and I popped in the top F at the end and said, look, I want to do it on my knees and I want to be hunched over. I want to find a position that no singer can, that it's not possible to sing in. And Stuart going, okay, give it a go, and we found it. And it was just like, I was like, yes. I love those challenges. Just love that. And the difficulty of learning Lulu and hard roles like Cleopatra, for instance. It's such a huge thing. And just going, okay, this is a massive challenge ahead of me, and I can do this. But really, that was so not easy, but a comfortable challenge. Whereas teaching now is a whole new world for me, the world of academic. Oh my goodness, learning spreadsheets and
Emma, as our final question, what's the first thing that you'd like to do after this time passes?
Look, you know, I'm torn between what Emma the singer wants to do and what Emma the teacher wants to do.
Answer is all of the Emmas.
Okay. Well, Emma the singer just wants to get back up on the stage and do everything. And but I tell you what, I'll be buying a ticket to the first thing that's on here that we're allowed to go and see. I'll be there. But also, I'm really looking forward to my students and the Whopper Orchestra putting on Orpheus in the Underworld this year. So we're doing a version with a very small audience of about 20. But I mean, that's going to be fantastic. and everybody's just going to be throwing themselves into it, and we're going to be filming it. It's going to be just wonderful. But also just hearing voices again, like a massive voices, when it's safe to do so. And because that sound of a choir singing and a full orchestra playing,
completely, yes.
To come and hear a Victorian opera production and just go, wow, hear, and those amazing voices. It's
so interesting. We don't necessarily take these things for granted. You go to see the orchestra, you go to the opera, and you have an amazing experience. But I think now the value of that is so much more profound.
Isn't it? It is. It is.
Well, Emma, it has been such a joy to chat. Lots of love to you, and please stay safe.
Oh, you too, Scott, darling. Lots of love to you. Thank you for having me, darling.
For more chats with artists in isolation, you can follow Victorian Opera across social media or visit victorianopera.com.au. I'm Scott Winfield. Thanks for watching.